I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, you know Milwaukee is going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Things that both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Here we go at Oakmont. Let's start with the course. What do we know about this course? How long is the rough, and does course history come into effect for you this week?
The U.S. Open has always been billed as the most difficult test of golf there is on the planet. And I tell you what, it's often labeled as the most difficult golf course in the world is Oakmont.
Game time decisions, only on Sports.
Hello and welcome to a Friday Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. We are together here live for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. Bright and early on this Friday morning to look back on a game number 4, a historic outing in Sunrise, Florida, of the Stanley Cup Finals. Set the stage for game number 4 of the 2025 NBA Finals on this Friday night, and DRS the entirety of the weekend as well. That is our charge over these next 3 hours to finish out this week strong on TEL, and of course get you ready to win some wagers all weekend long.
Absolutely. What a Friday it is. Talk about so many championships underway here, Ben. The U.S. Open, day number 1. There was a lot of carnage out there. Day number 2, looking at it setting up for some more carnage here. We have an NHL hockey game and maybe the best Stanley Cup series that we've seen through 4 games that you can ever ask for. An NBA Finals, which has the upset alert on tonight, which could possibly start to close the door on one of the best teams in the NBA. Man, oh man, this weekend is going to be good stuff, and it starts tonight. And matter of fact, it starts right now.
It starts right now on the Early Line. It starts right now already with round number 2 underway outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at Oakmont Country Club. We knew the course would be a story, and oh boy, Oakmont showed its teeth on opening round Thursday. We'll talk about the early portion of round number 2 in just a matter of moments. But DRS, let's talk that Stanley Cup final here in 2025, entering this championship set. A rematch of last year's Cup final that was historic for its own reasons. Florida up 3-0, Edmonton fighting back to force a Game 7, and the Panthers hoisting a Stanley Cup in Sunrise. How would this year resemble what we saw a season ago, and how would it be different? Well, what we have seen right now is history through 4 games. 3 of our 4 decided in overtime. And last night, DRS, for the first time in 106 years, a road team in a Stanley Cup final comes back from a 3-goal deficit and wins outright. Edmonton evens this series at 2 games all with a 5-4 victory in OT. Last night in Florida, it was the Panthers pouncing early. They had a 3-0 lead after the opening 20 minutes. Edmonton tied it up, then even took a lead early in the 3rd period. Sam Reinhart, scores the game-tying goal with 20 seconds left in regulation. And in overtime, DRS, Leon Draisaitl delivers once again. A one-hander that somehow, some way finds its way into the back of the net. Edmonton prevails 5-4 in OT, courtesy of Leon Draisaitl once again.
Incredible, man. Just an incredible game. It was a blowout in game number 3. Set up to be a blowout in game number 4. I have no idea when I woke up this morning and saw that Edmonton won in overtime. Like, oh my goodness, what actually happened in that game? A goalie getting pulled in the first period because he just wasn't good enough. The backup coming in and saving the day. Leon Draisaitl maybe has to score 6 more overtime goals, which isn't even possible here for the rest of the Stanley Cup Finals to maybe be the favorite here for the Edmonton Oilers in winning the Conn Smythe Trophy. We have so much to break down in this game, and I can't. Now it's a best of 3 home ice advantage back to Edmonton. And we talked about this game yesterday. Based on game number 3, unless you're just being a contrarian, how would you like the Edmonton Oilers? Then they go down 3-0, and then Edmonton wins. Well, this is a story right now that I can't wait to see finish.
DRS, that decisive victory for Florida on home ice in game number 3, 6-1. The Oilers look flustered, and then you see the Panthers jump out to a 3-zip lead after the opening period. You're thinking this game, this series, done. Give the cup back to the reigning champs. Leon Draisaitl had other ideas. His 4th overtime goal in this Stanley Cup postseason. He had 6 in the regular season. Both of those records, the 6 in the regular, the 4 in the post, the most all-time for Leon Draisaitl. And again, the first time in a Stanley Cup final game since 1919, 106 years ago, a team that was on the road, was trailing by at least 3 goals, and came all the way back to win. Plenty more around the Stanley Cup final in just a matter of moments. But on this Friday, it is cut day at the 2025 United States Open at Oakmont. Very difficult test yesterday. J.J. Spaun, your round 1 leader, 4 under par yesterday, DRS. But one of the stories, and a guy already out there on the course, Brooks Koepka, the 5-time major winner, 2 under in his opening round. He is even par through his opening 2 holes early on this Friday.
Yeah, watching out. Jordan Spieth, too, has really been MIA in a lot of these big tournaments as of late. He's in the top 10 right now. This is going to be the battle of attrition. You already see after one day, Ben, the cut line estimated at +4. +4. That's what you like to see. And by the way, if I was asking you a question right now where that cut line goes today, I bet you probably goes down to +5, maybe even deeper than that, because the expectations today is you got a whiff of that golf course yesterday. You're coming back today. The pinholes change, the locations change. One missed fairway here, and you could be in trouble. What a fantastic tournament shaping up here. I can't wait to see where that cut line actually is at the end of the day.
Yesterday, DRS, we knew the morning wave, according to Keith Stewart, had the advantage. J.J. Spaun out early, post a 4 under par to be that leader after round number 1. Guys on the course as we speak, including Scotty Scheffler, who was 3 over par in his opening 18 yesterday. Rory 4 over. The reigning U.S. Open champion Bryson DeChambeau also 3 over through his first 18 holes. How about a debut yesterday in Major League Baseball for the flame-throwing rook for the Milwaukee Brewers, Jacob Misiorowski? 5 innings of no-hit baseball, blanking the Cardinals at home, but also leaving the game early despite that no-hit bid because of some cramping in his leg. But still, a Major League Baseball debut that Milwaukee and Misiorowski will remember for a very long time.
Yeah, cramping, ankle turning, whatever it was. He was filthy yesterday, and this is what we talked about handicapping this game. Let me get this straight. Sonny Gray's been one of the better pitchers in baseball this year. He's barely a favorite to a kid that hasn't pitched at the Major League Baseball level. Well, that was your answer yesterday. 14-plus pitches, over 100 miles per hour. The kid looked good.
Yeah, he certainly did, DRS. You know who also looks really good on the bump? That's the reigning AL Cy Young winner in Tarik Skubal. He delivers yet another gem as the Tigers get to 45 wins. Skubal on the bump yesterday against the Orioles in Baltimore. 7 innings of shutout baseball, only allowing 3 base knocks and fanning 6. Skubal, now a hefty favorite to win his 2nd consecutive Cy Young hardware.
Yeah, he's filthy. It doesn't matter like what lineup he goes against. You just watch the highlights. You'd be like, how do you actually hit this kid? Answer, you don't.
Yeah, you really don't. Only 3 base knocks yesterday for Baltimore. The New York Mets sweep the Washington Nationals, but DRS, Kodai Senga got the start yesterday for New York. He left that start early with a hamstring injury.
Surprised not calling it a cramp, and he'll probably be back in the rotation in 5 days. Look, I'm going to give the prognosis right now. 1 month on Kodai Senga. You heard it from Dr. Donnie.
Dr. Donnie always is spot on with those muscle strains. Kodai Senga already placed on the IL. He is set to have an MRI today. Mandatory minicamp coming to a close yesterday around the National Football League. DRS for Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers was there. TJ Watt was not, but Mike Tomlin remains optimistic. A new deal will be done very soon.
Mike Tomlin's favorite player in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers is TJ Watt. He will get a new deal. He will be back in camp.
How about Connor Hellebuck pulling off the 2 for DRS? He won both the Vezina for the best goaltender in the National Hockey League and the Hart Trophy. That's the MVP of the NHL as well. Not your favorite German player, DRS, Leon Draisaitl, who, of course, scored another overtime game winner yesterday in the Cup Final.
Yeah, come on. That's why we got to wait a little bit longer to vote on these MVPs. Don't give me the regular season. Give me the entire season MVP. Enough.
The Rangers have traded Chris Kreider to the Anaheim Ducks as well. Connor Hellebuck, the first goaltender to win that Hart Trophy in a decade. Speaking of the ice, we go to the Cup Final next.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say yeah, I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee's going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Is this the best Stanley Cup final that we have seen? Excuse me. Got me so choked up that we're talking about history, DRS. We got to get things going here. Game number 4 of that Stanley Cup final last night in Sunrise between the reigning Stanley Cup champions in the Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, a rematch of exactly a season ago. That series went 7 games. And this one certainly seems destined to go 7 as well. But in the opening 20 minutes last night, after Florida decisively and in dominant fashion won game number 3, 6-1, we were wondering, hey, is this series going to be done in a rather quick manner? The Panthers jumped out to a 3-0 lead after that opening period, only for Edmonton to even things up with 3 goals of its own in period number 2. The Oilers took an early lead in the third period. Sam Reinhart delivers for Florida, scoring with 19.5 seconds left in regulation to tie the game at 4-4, setting us to overtime. And in OT, Leon Draisaitl delivers once again for the Oilers. Edmonton comes all the way back to even this series at 2 games apiece with a 5-4 OT win in game number 4.
It's not supposed to happen. It's just not. 3-0 at the end of the first period. That's Edmonton licking their wounds. Okay, we're down 3-1. Let's rally for game number 5, force a game number 6, see if we can win that and win game number 7. Like, that's what's going through my mind if I'm an Edmonton player. Not, oh, yeah, we're down 3-0. Let's even this bad boy up here at the end of the second period. And then almost having that heartbreak where you saw the late goal here, the second time in the Stanley Cup Final, under a minute to play, a goal scored to send it into overtime, and they rebound to get that overtime winner. Because there's something about, you know what? We're down big. We used all our energy to come back. I can't believe we blew that game. For the fact that the Edmonton Oilers were able to do an overtime was equally impressive. But again, just the fact that, like, game number 3, you got crushed in that game. Game number 4, you're getting absolutely crushed again. You're probably looking at 6-0, 6-1. Your goalie's getting pulled right now. It's just havoc all over the place where the morale had to be at an extreme low, and yet you still won that game and heading back to Edmonton. What a fantastic NHL Finals so far. 3 out of the 4 games in overtime, late goals scored, big-time comebacks here. These are 2 teams just putting on an absolute clinic of why we love the game of hockey, man. It's crazy. What a series.
It absolutely is, DRS. 3 of our 4 games in overtime. In those 2 OT winners for Edmonton, it has been Leon Draisaitl delivering the game winner for the Oilers. A goal last night in the extra session with one hand on the stick that I still have watched about 5, 6, 7 times and have no idea how it got past Sergei Bobrovsky and into the back of the net to win it for the Oilers. DRS, the 4th overtime goal for Leon Draisaitl throughout this Stanley Cup postseason run, the most ever overtime winners in a single postseason in Stanley Cup playoff history. He also had 6 OT winners or overtime goals in the regular season, the most overtime goals in a regular season in National Hockey League history. And Donnie, more history last night. In fact, history that we have not seen in more than a century in the Stanley Cup Finals. For the first time since 1919, when the Montreal Canadiens did it to the Seattle Metropolitans, a team that was trailing by at least 3 goals on the road in a Stanley Cup final game, comes all the way back to win outright. That is what the Oilers pulled off on a Thursday night in Sunrise in a 4th game of the 2025 Cup Final that will go down in the history books in the long lore of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And this is what you asked for. Like, you got 2 highly competitive teams here, the Stanley Cup champions from last year, going back to the Stanley Cup final for the 3rd straight time. Edmonton carrying that weight of Canada. Can we win a Stanley Cup? Can we actually do it here? We didn't do it last year, came all the way back in 7 games, only to lose in 7 games. Now you have a best of 3, which isn't all you can ask for. If you started out this hockey season and said, hey, Edmonton, you're going to be tied at 2-2 with home ice advantage here to win a Stanley Cup. They take that every single time. And now the momentum clearly back on Edmonton's side, where the Panthers have to be wondering, we were probably going to have the cup in the building for game number 5 because our expectations were we were going to win this 4-1. Now getting shaken up and saying we got to leave South Florida, fly 3,500 miles to the Pacific Northwest and say, oh boy, now we just got to win this game to get it back on our side at this point. That's a devastating blow to Florida. They'll bounce back. That's a championship pedigree, but they got to be stung this morning when they woke up like, man, how did we lose that one?
Again, DRS, in Game 3, the Panthers won 6-1. Edmonton committed 21 penalties. Florida's style of getting under the skin of its opponents certainly seemed to be coming out in game number 3, and the Panthers pounced immediately on home ice in game number 4 to take that 3-0 series lead. I was not looking at the updated live odds. I would love to know what that plus money price was on the Oilers to force a comeback and win outright, because the minus 150 money line price on Florida entering game 4 was the strongest money line number we had seen yet in the 4 games of this Cup final. Oh, by the way, the scoring has not slowed. Every single game has skied over a total of 6.5. One of the main differences, though, DRS, of this year's Cup final in 25 as opposed to last year in 2024, Edmonton has home ice advantage. So now with this set, tied at 2 games all, it's a best of 3. 5 and 7, that will be above the border, where the Oilers will be on home ice, trying to bring a Stanley Cup back to Canada for the first time in more than 3 decades. And here is the price to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. It's a pick'em on both sides. -110 DRS for both the Oilers and the Panthers.
It's buyback time. We waited after game number 1. Ooh, those Panthers getting a +180 price. Then they had 2 straight wins. I didn't want to buy back on the Oilers because I still don't think the Oilers win the series. I'm still giving the nod to the Panthers. But now after that loss, you get them basically at a pick'em here. I'm going to take the Florida Panthers once again here. If you had that +180 price, you love it. But here's a chance to get back in here if you still think the Panthers can win the Cup, even though, as Ben pointed out, they don't have home ice advantage anymore. Game number 5, pivotal. Let's see who wins this game. But for me, that's my buyback time with the Panthers, I think. I think it is.
Look at that bottom number. 7 games is -140. We think we will see the distance once again.
Yep.
But DRS, in what world is Leon Draisaitl not having a shorter price than his teammate,
He's not
Connor
Canadian.
McDavid, who did have a couple of
Not
assists
Canadian.
last night? But McDavid has not scored yet in the Cup final, and Draisaitl has delivered the 2 game winners in overtime for Edmonton. We got to get Donnie's thoughts on that, man. I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee's going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Here we go at Oakmont. Let's start with the course. What do we know about this course? How long is the rough, and does course history come into effect for you this week?
The U.S. Open has always been billed as the most difficult test of golf there is on the planet. And I tell you what, it's often labeled as the most difficult golf course in the world is Oakmont.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
We'll get to some news and notes around Major League Baseball from an 8-game Thursday slate in just a moment. But DRS, your Canadian team, now just 2 wins away from bringing that Stanley Cup back to the Great White North for the first time in more than 30 years since 1993. And on your Canadian team, and that, of course, the Edmonton Oilers, the guy that has delivered the game winner in overtime in both of the 2 victories for the Oilers in this Cup final is your favorite German player in Leon Draisaitl. And yet, Draisaitl, now with his team tied at 2 games all in the Stanley Cup final, is still behind his teammate, Connor McDavid, to win the Conn Smythe Award. Now, this is an MVP hardware for the entirety of the postseason. McDavid has been great filling up the point sheet. He has been facilitating on the ice beautifully so. But Draisaitl now has 4 OT winners in this postseason. That's an NHL playoff record, and he's got both of the OT game winners for Edmonton here in the Cup final. In what world is Leon Draisaitl behind Connor McDavid, even by a couple of dimes in the Conn Smythe Trophy odds.
Yeah, 1993 was the last time that an NHL team in Canada won the Stanley Cup. Now, if you're saying to yourself, well, who was that, the catalyst there? I don't know who was the Conn Smythe, but probably was Patrick Waugh. He was absolutely sensational that season for the Canadiens. And again, Patrick Waugh, a Canadian. So if we're saying after all these years, Canada's going to finally win a Stanley Cup, and it's going to be the German that leads them, they're like, no. It just goes to Connor McDavid, because why even win the Stanley Cup if a young Canadian kid isn't able to bring the Stanley Cup back and be the best player on the team? Now, he is the best player over on the team. He's not the best player in the series by a wide margin. What would the statistics be right now? Let's just say it's still 2-2. McDavid had both overtime winners. Would he be -7? It wouldn't matter who won the cup. It's just McDavid. Matter. He wins it no matter what. That's the crazy part about it. And yes, we understand assists are important, but you have 2 overtime winners in the Stanley Cup and you're playing great hockey. It's like, I don't know, man. See that McDavid assist the other night? That was fantastic. Forget about those 2 goals. Kevin and I used to joke about it, a couple years ago when it was, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was having a great season for Toronto, but Shohei Ohtani would strike out 3 times in one night. Guerrero would hit 2 home runs, and Ohtani would get the better pricing there on the MVP award. Nothing makes sense sometimes. It should be Draisaitl. He's playing the best in the clutch moments for Edmonton, and he's still behind. Even if it was like Draisaitl plus 200 and McDavid plus 240, all right, a little bit of respect there. But he's still behind him? That can't be right now.
Yeah.
We're waiting on McDavid to score a hat trick next game? We told you he was going to be the best player.
If Draisaitl was not from Frankfurt, but maybe Nova Scotia, would the odds be the same? I think, for sure. I think we investigate DRS later on in hour number 2 when the NHL's Chris Meany will join us for his reactions to a historic night in Sunrise. Again, the Oilers, the first team in 106 years, more than a century, since 1919, to trail by 3 goals on the road in a cup final game and come all the way back to win outright. All right, let's get to some MLB headlines from a Thursday in the sport. And anytime Tarek Skubal is on the bump, it's going to be very difficult to beat the Detroit Tigers. They get their 45th win of the season, a 4-1 win, as Skubal goes 7 innings, allows just 3 hits, and does not allow a single earned run while striking out 6 in Baltimore. His ERA now sub-2, down to a 1.99.
Yeah, he's been impressive, and this is why you look at Detroit, because there's regular season baseball and there's short series postseason baseball. I just don't know if the Tigers have enough. Okay, well, Skubal's pitching game number 1. Your team's down 0-1 automatically in a short series. That's why Detroit can be tough at this point. And really, after that slow start, it's like, maybe Skubal doesn't have it this year. He's been lights out since then, which includes yesterday again. 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 3 hits given up in yesterday in a good hitting environment with warm conditions in one of the best hitters ballparks in Major League Baseball, and he just comes right out and shuts the door immediately. This kid is fantastic, pitching great, and this is why Detroit has a legitimate chance to win a World Series, because this guy is going to take the mound on games 1 or game number 2, and you're not beating him.
You're not beating him. And then you have Jack Flaherty right behind him. That's a really good 1-2 punch for the Tigers, who get win number 45 of the season. The Mets also post win number 45. New York, a slightly better record at 45-24 to Detroit's 45-25. But DRS, just a little bit of historical perspective on Tarek Skubal. Last 4 starts, 30 2/3 innings, has allowed a single earned run. That's a .29 ERA. He has 32 strikeouts to only 2 walks in that 4-start span. On top of that, how about this stat from Sarah Langs, who provides great coverage of Major League Baseball? Skubal in his last 12 starts, 101 strikeouts to only 5 walks. It is ridiculous. More around Major League Baseball next.
Their team total is 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
18.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Just some further context on Tarek Skubal. As we discussed, he is now a minus 280 favorite to win the American League Cy Young Award, DRS, for a second consecutive year. I talked about his last 12 starts. That's everything he has done the entirety of this season. 101 Ks to only 5 walks. In the last 125 years of Major League Baseball, Tarek Skubal is now the second pitcher to have at least 100 strikeouts with 5 walks or fewer in a 12-start span, joining Clayton Kershaw back in 2016. What this guy is doing right now for Detroit is incredibly special. They are hoping in Milwaukee, after start number 1 of the MLB career of Jacob Mizorowski, the lanky flamethrower for the Brew Crew, he can replicate even a semblance of that success. 5 innings of no-hit baseball in his MLB debut yesterday in Wisconsin. Did exit his start early due to some cramping in his calf and his quad after those 5 innings of work. But you'll take it, DRS. Clocking 100 on the gun, by the way, 14 times in his first start in his MLB career.
Yeah, I liked what he said, too, in the post-game press conference. Like, you know, you're hoping for your welcome to Major League Baseball moment. You give up a couple hits, give up a couple runs, and you try to bounce back, and he didn't get that yesterday, which was great. And also understand this from Major League Baseball perspective. They'll eventually get a book on the kid, right? And maybe he's a really good pitcher, and he turns into Tarek Skubal. But outside of that, when you get a kid that has an absolute hammer coming at you at 100+ miles per hour and also a breaking pitch, it takes a while to get around on the kid, which, again, he didn't pitch all that long in this game, 81 pitches, and he was absolutely fantastic. But, again, from a handicapping perspective, it's so hard to judge some of these guys because there's 2 different prospects that come up in Major League Baseball. Either they're your top-level flamethrowers or we don't want to burn a flamethrower. Let's just bring up a middling guy because who cares if we start his clock? We're never going to end up paying that guy anyway. This was the opposite, as we pointed out. A high draft pick here with a high signing bonus. The expectations were this kid was going to be good. And once you just read the pedigree on, yeah, he touches routinely at 100, you knew that might be an issue. And my goodness, the St. Louis Cardinals, like, thank God this guy was out of here. But still, that bullpen really held it down. And it wasn't if Milwaukee ran away with, 6-0 easy victory. It was a 1-0 game here heading into the 5th inning. So the kid was under stress and still pitching in high leverage innings here before that eventually got done. So good on the kid. Great Major League Baseball start. We'll see what he does next time around, throwing 100+ here, or if he misses any time at this point either.
Yeah, DRS, a lot of notoriety on Big Miz taking the bump yesterday in Milwaukee, and Jacob Mizorowski did deliver. That's all you can hope for, matching the occasion and seeing that significant stage in his MLB debut. By the way, he topped out at 102.2 miles per hour. The guy has some gas. There is no doubt about it. The Brewers playing really good baseball as of late. They're 37-33. They now move a half game in front of St. Louis in this divisional rivalry, a 4-game set starting yesterday and over the weekend. The Cards, DRS, have dropped 5 in a row. They falter to 36-33. The best record in Major League Baseball, that's in the National League East for the New York Mets, 45-24. And Kodai Senga, who has baseball's best ERA this season, a 1.47, I believe, was absolutely dealing in 5 1/3 yesterday against the Nationals as the Mets were looking for a sweep over Washington. They got the sweep, but Kodai Senga in that 6th inning trying to cover first base felt a pull on his hamstring, exits his start with a hamstring strain, already has been placed on the IL.
Yeah, never want to see that, but the Mets did get the victory. That's the most important thing. Now, you might lose a pitcher for the time frame, and also got a little hairy there the 9th inning. Stanek comes in, can't get anybody out. Diaz comes in and picks up the save. So this game looked like it was going to be an easy winner. And also yesterday, take a look at, hey, the Mets probably going to score some runs, warmer temperatures, 3 in the 1st inning. They only get the 4 runs in that game, and they got that 4th run in the bottom of the 5th inning. Nothing the rest of the way out, where you want to sort of build on that lead, which it should have never been that close at 4-3, because the Mets probably should have had 6 or 7 runs in that game overall. It just didn't work out in their favor. 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. That'll do that to you every single time.
5 2/3, by the way, for Kodai Senga before he exited with that hamstring strain, and obviously blanked the Nats on the other side. Only allowed 1 base hit and did have 5 strikeouts. Yes, an MLB best 1.47 ERA, but of course, tough injury news for New York. It has been that starting staff, DRS, for the Amazons, maybe performing a tad over their head, and Kodai Senga, the ace of that starting rotation, that has had the Mets at 45-24, best record in Major League Baseball. Also, the longest active win streak now in the National League, make it 6 wins in a row for New York, because the Giants had their win streak snapped yesterday against the Colorado Rockies. How about the Rocks at Coors Field? They win 8-7 over San Francisco, their first walk-off win this season.
Yeah, you never know. Like, after the 5th inning, it's like crazy things happen at Coors Field. We call it that Coors Magic. 1 in the bottom of the 6th, 2 in the bottom of the 7th, and 3 in the bottom of the 9th inning here. 8-7 final. That's a tough loss, but it's just every time you go to Coors, like, even though Colorado's a bad team, crazy things typically happen. And congratulations, Colorado, on their 13th win of the season. How about that?
7 straight wins for SF entering yesterday. 6 of those 7 consecutively, DRS, decided by a lone run. And then yesterday, also a lone run, but on the wrong side of it. Colorado's 13th win of the season, their first walk-off victory this year. All right, so some big picture perspective now, DRS, in terms of both leagues and where the pennant chases stand at this moment. The Yankees sweep the Royals yesterday in KC, a wild winner, a 1-0 victory for the Pinstripes. The Yanks, of course, they are the favorites to win the American League pennant at plus 195. But how can you discredit the Detroit Tigers at plus 310, knowing what they have up front in that starting rotation? DRS, it's not surprising necessarily to see New York ahead of Detroit. Do you think the gap of over $1 is justified at this moment?
Yeah, it is, because the Yankees are going to get the overwhelming majority of the bets in here, and that's where you're trying to sort of balance your books at that point. But also, the Yankees are playing great baseball. And yesterday, Aaron Judge not in the lineup. The Yankees only score 1 run. So, hey, hint, NDP. His odds probably should go higher at that point. But they still won the baseball game, and that's all you could ask for there. So, I don't blame that. It's appropriate. And then you see, like, the Astros, Twins, and Mariners. Like, there's 2 tiers, right? There's the Yankees and the Tigers. And then it's everybody else. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, we don't talk about the Astros, and here they are in 3rd place in the odds market at the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the American League pennant. Starting to play better baseball, waiting on Alvarez to come back. But it's clear to me, like, lineup-wise and starting pitching and just overwhelming the rest of the league, it's the Yankees and the Tigers for me. So I agree with those 2 price points being much better than the 3rd place team and beyond.
DRS, it feels like in the American League, it's the Yankees here, maybe slightly in front of the Tigers here, and then we're out of camera frame to kind of figure out where that next contending team might be around the American League at this moment. The Astros now 38-30, playing really good baseball in the last 2.5 weeks. They did beat the Chicago White Sox yesterday to take their midweek set, winning the final 2 games. Framber Valdez on the bump struck out 12. Let's go to the National League. The Dodgers, of course, are always going to have an overwhelmingly optimistic and short price at plus 130. But the New York Mets at 45-24, best record in MLB, a plus 440 price on the Mets.
Yep, there you go. Cubs and the Phillies tied at 7-1 right there. The Mets should be in front. They're playing great baseball right now. And if you argued who's the best team just right now as we look at it, it's the New York Mets in the National League. There's no question. But we're just waiting.
Yeah.
You see that Dodgers, like the injury report, if that does get healthy and they add on, that's why the Dodgers are always going to be the favorite. But once again, Phillies, Cubs, Mets, probably jockeying for that second place all summer long, going up against the Los Angeles Dodgers. The only thing that matters, look, again, you can't win the pennant by having the best record in the regular season. You win the pennant by winning in the playoffs. We'll see how that plays out.
In DRS, I think that's such an important point, right? It really feels different in October. It's like its own new season after 162 games. But of course, you need to perform well at this moment to be in position to have that postseason opportunity. The San Diego Padres, 38-29. They're 9 games above 500. DRS, 5 teams, including all 5 on that list around the National League, 6 teams, but all 5 teams on that list as we add in the Giants, 9 games above 500 or better in the NL. It feels like a deeper run to the National League despite the short price on the Dodgers. A Football Friday next.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee is going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Things that both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Mandatory minicamp this week around the National Football League has really come to a close. It's about to be summer break around the NFL, about a month plus off before the players and teams return for training camp late in July. And DRS, we brought you this update yesterday, but let's really fully flesh this out in Cincinnati. Cincy's unsigned first-round draft pick, Shamar Stewart, taken 17th overall, now has left mandatory minicamp per a source to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Stewart had been attending team activities, but without a signed rookie contract, was not participating, and with the Bengals asking for certain default clauses, no longer was Shamar Stewart even in attendance at mandatory minicamp. Let's hear what the head coach in Cincinnati, not a front office individual, but what the head coach, Zach Taylor, had to say all about it.
Here's the latest on Shamar and why wasn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't here today, so we just focused on the guys that were here.
What have the conversations been like with him?
He and I have had positive conversations.
Did he communicate with you before he left? Or did you guys, was there a conversation between you?
He did. We've had good communication.
Zach, is it a big deal he's missed out on on-field reps?
I think for all the rookies, you'd like them to be on the field, but certainly there's things that happen over the course of an NFL career, and this is one of them right now. So he's been in the meetings. He's been positive in that way. He's been learning. He's been a good learner, and we look forward to getting him back on the field quickly.
This is obviously a first for you when it comes to a first-round pick. How have you navigated the water?
There's a first for everything. You know, it's every year you kind of learn something new in this position, and this is just one of those things that the players have managed really well, and we keep the team moving. And when he jumps on the field, that'll be great for our team.
Zach Taylor had all the right things to say, DRS, but he's not the guy negotiating with Shamar Stewart's representation, asking for a default clause that would negate guaranteed money based on injury. So what exactly is Zach Taylor supposed to say? What do you make of the head coach in Cincinnati?
Yeah, here's the funny part about Cincinnati, right? If you're a head coach there, you're on the coaching staff, you're actually in a pretty good spot at that point. The reason I bring this up, like Marvin Lewis, who coached there, I think 15, 16, 17 years, he was there a long time, didn't end up winning any Super Bowls, but the joke used to always be like, well, they're not going to fire Marvin Lewis because they owe him 2 more years. Like most NFL teams operate like, I'm going to fire you right now, like the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau's owed $30+ million. So what? I think we get a better coach, write him a check and be out of there. Like you have such great, coaching acumen where if you have more than 1 year left on your deal, it's like, we can't fire this guy. We're not going to pay a whole new coaching staff an extra year of salary. So let's get that out of the way. Like I usually would say, oh, I pity Zach Taylor. No, he's in a good spot because they'll never fire him until he's like at the end of his contract. And what player / owner / coach is going to go into that year of being like, I'm a lame duck coach here? It usually doesn't happen. But let's focus on this. You know what Zach should have said there? Like, yeah, we joke about it. Like, this idiot Brown, the ownership group, and his whole family over there have no idea what you're doing. Kid, I got your back. Like, if I go back to the Buddy Ryan era days where we had a terrible owner in Norman Brayman, who all these bottom line Brayman here, some of the best superstars in the sport, I'm not paying those guys. The minute free agents here, they're all going to walk out of the door. So what Buddy Ryan used to do to get upset was when Keith Jackson wanted a new contract and it was big and broad, he'd call the owner names. Then when they'd eventually sign the guy, he'd pick him up at the airport in a limo and really show up the owner. Like, thank goodness this guy's back here, you bozo. We need this guy. It's unbelievable. Like, I understand our coaches have to play to the PC and the press. It's just what we do here. But those conversations, hey, kid, man, hold strong out there. I know you'll be in here. It's not your fault at all. Trust me, kid, we love you. We drafted you. We want you on the field, just that our ownership group is a bunch of bozos.
You think we're critical of the Cincinnati Bengals? There is probably no more man that is frustrated by what that front office is doing than the head coach, Zach Taylor. Yeah. Because he led the Bengals to a Super Bowl appearance and understands what needs to happen on the actual football field to get back to that stage and that ceiling once again. Zach Taylor in that clip said he has had positive conversations and discussions with Shamar Stewart. But of course, the rookie was rather critical this week, DRS, of that Cincy front office, saying they should just want to pay everybody. The owner should open up the pocketbook to pay Trey Hendrickson. Shamar Stewart saying he's 100% right in these contract negotiations. What did Zach Taylor have to make of all that Shamar Stewart had to say to the media? Here's the head coach once again.
He was pretty critical the other day of the organization. How do you balance that? How do you react to that representing the organization?
I think there's education that happens with all the rookies, that we do our best to educate them. Number one, we want to protect our team and our locker room. And so there's some things I understand when there's frustration there, but that's how he chose to do it, and that's his prerogative. And we look forward to getting him back in the fold.
He told us that he won't practice unless he signs his contract. So at this point, are you confident that he'll have his contract signed by the start of training camp?
I'm not going to make any predictions.
Did you talk to him following those comments he made the other day?
We've had good communication.
Listen, Zach Taylor understood what the party line was out there, DRS. You probably heard Shamar Stewart say what he said in his locker earlier this week during minicamp. It was like, yes, Shamar, I can't say it, but you go out there and rip on the Brown family.
I mean, can you imagine this in the day and age where the whole thing the NFL set up with the players' union is like, let's not have these ridiculous rookie deals. Like, let's not have you have to negotiate with your player before you actually draft them. Sure. Let's slot it. Everybody's happy. Everybody's in camp. And it also means for the veterans of your league, they're going to get more money when their contract is up, saying like, hey, I just got drafted. This guy didn't do anything. He's making twice the amount as me. That worked out in their favor. And also what's supposed to happen is, how does a rookie on a slotted contract deal not have a deal in place by training camp? Can you imagine this kid's holding out? Or I'm not even calling him holding out. The Bengals are holding out from giving an honest contract to a player, and it goes into training camp. Again, we're talking about slotted contracts. Hit the Xerox button there. Get your 15-page and sign it. Ooh, do I have to find out what to read him? No, you don't, kid. This is exactly what you get for the 17th or 18th pick in the draft. Everybody gets this contract. Just sign it and move on at this point. The fact that it's holding out this long is so funny. And also, from another perspective, where Trey Hendrickson is a unbelievable defensive end. He wants more money. He's not there. Like, the Bengals should be like, we're fighting over a clause when we need this kid to be ready day one in here to try to help us out if Trey doesn't show up. And the Bengals, again, drive this point home. All right, if Shamar doesn't show up, we don't have to pay him his bonus, so we can still have it sitting in the bank getting, a lot of acumen here, and we have to get a couple extra dollars. And if Trey doesn't show up, that could be millions of dollars in our pocket. We might not win a game this year. This could be the most profitable season we've ever had as Bengals owners. We love this year. Get out of town. Come on.
Again, Shamar Stewart is not a wide receiver. Maybe you could give him some grace if that was the case. He is an edge rusher who was the 17th overall pick in what is Cincy's issue. Defense. And who do they not have out there? Defense at this moment. It doesn't even make common logistical sense. More on the Bengals next.
Now Golden back to Notre Dame. Come on.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee's going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Here we go at Oakmont. Let's start with the course. What do we know about this course? How long is the rough, and does course history come into effect for you this week?
The U.S. Open has always been billed as the most difficult test of golf there is on the planet. And I tell you what, it's often labeled as the most difficult golf course in the world is Oakmont.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid, a small dose of a Football Friday. DRS, just for context around the Shamar Stewart situation, you might be saying to yourself, what exactly is this rookie asking for? What is his issue with the wording in his contract, the legal language of which he will not participate during mandatory minicamp? It is a default clause that would void future guarantees. Do other NFL teams have the same for their rookie deals? In large part, yes. But Shamar Stewart is arguing that the Bengals have changed the wording following last year's first-round pick for Amarius Mims. And it's not exactly the same clause or structure of the contract that would void all future guarantees for Shamar Stewart as other teams around the National Football League for their rookies. From the player perspective, you can understand that in the dangerous game of football, if something happens and there are no guarantees for the entirety of your contract, that's a pretty precarious situation to be in.
No, exactly. And that's not the footing that you want to get off to with a rookie that you're welcoming into your family. Nickel and diming here at the worst possible time. It's not good to get over and say, well, I'm the 17th pick. I felt like I'm the 10th pick, so pay me like the 10th pick. Like, no, he's not asking for that. And it's always like, we wouldn't even nod an eye. Like, if this was, let's just say, I don't know, the Eagles or the Ravens, like, the Ravens probably are dug in pretty deep here. That probably this is their standard. But we know the Bengals like to play these games. Hey, man, if you get injured, we could take back some of your money. What are we arguing for? What happens if the kid is really good and plays great football as your expectations of why you drafted him in the first round anyway? It's just a horrible way to start off, and it's just always a bad look. The Bengals, every year it's always a bad look. Sooner than later, it's not the players. It's the ownership group and what they're trying to do. And everybody around the league reading into this going like, why is the language different here? And what if it isn't? Just change it back to the old one, sign it. And if the kid's really good, great. If he's not good, he'll bust out like many other first-round picks have done here. Why are you trying to hang this over the kid's head before he even gets started and playing his first game?
As of last check, only 5 of the 32 first-round picks, including Shamar Stewart of this draft in April, remain unsigned. And for whatever reasons, those are not exactly contract wording in those other 4 cases as opposed to the case here for Shamar Stewart. Again, when you look at the Bengals front office, it's not just Shamar. This has been the case for a lot of their contract negotiations in the history of this franchise, owned initially by Paul Brown, who passed it off to his son Mike, whose daughter Katie Blackburn is the executive vice president, acting in a de facto GM role. This is a case of nepotism, and a guy named Duke Tobin, who is the director of player personnel, but basically the GM who's been doing it for 2 decades, 2.5 decades as well. So, DRS, when you look at the Bengals, who last year were a 9-8 football team after starting 0-3, but missed out on the postseason, does all this offseason drama, including with Trey Hendrickson and others along that defensive side of the ball, change your perspective, change your outlook on Cincinnati entering next season?
The only outlook that changes is we love Joe Burrow. We love the wide receivers. The offense is going to score points, but you have to have a semblance of defense. Now, granted, some defenses are young and they can surprise, and Al Golden's coming to town to sort of fix up that mess that Lou Anarumo had. But Lou Anarumo leaves town. Did anybody blame, like, man, that guy really fell off? What a bad GM or what a bad defensive coordinator. Like, no. He was a good defensive coordinator. Eventually said, I have nothing to work with here. Now, theoretically, you have even less to work with. So where would the optimism be? 40-39 every single game? And what happens if you get a hamstring injury for T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow goes down with a concussion? He's got to miss 2 to 3 weeks at this point. Oh, we can rely on a defense. No, you can't. Unless you're seeing something that I don't see right now. Let's just say Hendrickson holds out and Shamar Stewart doesn't show up late in camp and he's not technically ready for the season. You can't do that in the NFL. The hardest thing to do, and you try to gain, is you want team camaraderie. Everybody pulling in the same direction from OTAs to training camp to the start of the season. And all you have are these questions, like the coach said, hey, ask me any question you want. Not about my great quarterback and my wide receivers. Are your guys actually coming to camp, and do you believe what's happening going on, and when will they come back? Pulling in the right direction beginning of the season is so key. You don't want to see, oh, how Hendrickson came back week 6 because he didn't lose another year of eligibility and that's the last week that he can hang out. You don't want that, because then you have guys starting to play for themselves as opposed to the team concept here. That's the issue I have. Not with the Bengals' talent on offense. The team concept is already interrupted again.
And I think that's also part of it, right, DRS? You can argue the contract clause, the wording in the legal language. Is it standard around the NFL? Should Shamar Stewart be pissed about it? It doesn't really show that, hey, we're excited to have you here, kid, and we are looking forward to the impact you are going to make for this franchise this year and for many, many more years to come. We'll talk about the future for Cincinnati, including 2025. And that's starting quarterback for the Bengals, Joe Burrow, when hour number 2 starts next.